Okay, we're picking back up with practice test FPT 6A, the mathematics test. And what we're looking at now is number 4. It asks which graph could represent the relationship between x and y if it's known that y always decreases as x increases. And then they give you 4 different options. To be able to answer this question, you first have to understand some things about the xy coordinate plane. If you don't understand things about the xy coordinate plane, you're never going to figure this question out because they're not giving you a whole lot to go on. For example, usually with an xy coordinate plane, there would be numbers along each of the x and y coordinate the x and y axis. But we don't have that right here. Instead, what we've got is we have x and y, and then we have different drawings. So what we have to do is we have to translate what it is that they're talking about. In an ordinary xy coordinate plane, you have the 0, which is the point of origin, and then numbers go out from that 0 along the x-axis in a positive manner, and they go up from that 0 on the y-axis in a positive manner. This portion of the coordinate plane right here is what we're dealing with in the picture that you see here. They're only dealing with that first quadrant because we're only looking at these numbers when they're working in a positive manner for now, okay? So I'm not going to really go over the answers right now because there are several different answers and answer combinations. Instead, I want to talk to you about the graphs themselves and what it is that's happening. So what we need to know is that when y decreases as x increases. So these two things should be happening at the same time. Now I'm going to switch over to this, and what we're going to look at is we're going to look first of all at the first xy coordinate plane that they give us. Let me make this bigger so you can see. Okay, so the first one that they give us looks like this. And of course my line's not perfectly straight, but you get the general idea of what's happening with this line because it is the same general idea as what's happening with Roman numeral 1 right here. So what we have is we have a situation where, I'm going to change colors here for a minute, where along this line we can put dots anywhere we want to put them. And my dots are not going to be perfect little dots on this, but I want to show you a couple of dots. I'm going to put them on the XY plane, and I'm trying to put them in corners so that you'll be able to see a little bit more clearly. Okay, now what I'm going to do is I'm going to see what just happened. I'm going to change colors again. So for this dot, I had to go out 1 on the X, and I had to go up 1 on the Y. So this dot is at the 1, 1, because when x is 1, y is also 1. Now I'm going to go to the next dot that I drew. You can draw these dots anywhere you want to as long as they fall on the line. So with this one, I drew it at the 3, 3. So when x is at the 3, y is also at the 3. This next one here, I drew it at the 6 because it goes out to 6. And it goes up 6 also. So this one is at the 6, 6. So what we have happening here is that as the x is increasing from a 1 to a 3 to a 6, the y is also increasing from a 1 to a 3 to a 6. So what's happening is x and y are both increasing. I'm just going to abbreviate. They're increasing at the same rate. So the question asked, when y decreases, x increases. So we know that A is not going to be an answer because they're both increasing at the same rate. So I want to look at graph B, and let's see what's happening there. With graph B, what we see with this one is we see that the line is kind of flat and then it starts going down some. So let me take you back to the original picture. With this one, it's at a little bit of an angle and then it goes down some. So let me change my drawing just a little to sort of signify that bit of an angle that we see there. So when I change the line and I draw it like this, and just pretend like that's even, what's going to happen now is that we're watching this line move a little bit and then this one goes straight down. So I'm going to put some dots. Again, I'm going to change my color so you can see where my dots are. They're here, here. I'm going to put one right here, and I'm going to put one down here. Okay, again, randomly, you just want to put these dots somewhere so that they fall on the particular line that you're looking at. So I'm going to change my color. I'm going to see what happened. So this dot is out to the 2 and up to the 10. So when x is 2, y is 10. Now this one here, it went out to the 5 and it went to about the 9.5, because if you remember the original picture, it had a slight angle to it. So since this one went out to about a 9.5, our x was a 5, our y was a 9.5. Now I'm looking at this next dot. My x is at the 8, my y is at the 8. So x is at 8, y is at 8. With this last one here, the x is at 10 and the y is at a 4. 10 and 4. Now let's look at the pattern that we have. The pattern that we see here is we see the pattern of the x going from a 2 to a 5 to an 8 to a 10. So it is increasing. And the y is going from a 10 to a 9.5 to an 8 to a 4. So it is decreasing. So this second graph, which is Roman numeral 2, is going to be part of our answer. Now I want to look at what they have written for your answers. The answers don't have Roman numeral 2 by itself. Instead, the answers have Roman numeral 2 with 3 and 2 with 4. So we know that we need to continue looking because we don't know the answer. If we had found the answer with number 1, then we could have looked to see, because they have 1 and 4 only listed together, we could have checked 4 out to see if it would work. And if it worked, then we'd know that C would be our answer. If this one didn't work, then we would know that A would be our answer. And if neither of these two work, then we know that D or E is going to be our answer. So use process of elimination anytime you can to sort of help you with this. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to go back to my drawings, and we're going to look at number 3 and see what happens with it. So the number 3 is, let me make it where it's bigger so you can see it. Okay, so with number 3, I'm going to do the exact same thing that I've been doing. I'm going to put some little dots, and this one is actually a parabola shape, which is going to be important for the next question on the test. So, and I'll talk more about the shape when we get to the next question, but for right now, I just want to look and see what's happening with the dots that I just drew. Okay? So this one's a little bit different because my dots are off a little. They're not exactly on corners. I tried to put them on corners the best I could because I'm lazy and I want to do this the fastest way possible. So what I'm going to look at now is when this dot here is at a 1, it's at about a 2 1/4. So it's on the 1 for the x and about a 2 1/4 for the y. That's fine. Now on the x, it's at a 3 and a 5. 3 and 5. Okay, we've only got 2 dots and we already have a problem because what is supposed to be happening is x is supposed to be increasing and y is supposed to be decreasing, but that's not happening here. So let me go to the next one. It goes out to the x on a 5 and the y, it goes up to the 7. So option number 3, Roman numeral 3, is not going to be an answer. So now we are left with E having to be our answer. At this point in the test, you can either go ahead and mark E as your answer and move on, because you know it has to be the answer, because we know that 2, Roman numeral 2, is part of our answer. So this is the only answer that it could possibly be. But I want to go ahead and show you Roman numeral 4 so that you'll get a full idea of how this works. But I want you to understand, if you're taking the real test, use it to your advantage, because going through Roman numeral number 4 is going to take you anywhere from 1 to 3 minutes. And remember, you're timed on this test. So we want to make sure that you are getting extra time anywhere you possibly can. Since we know the answer is E, you don't have to continue. So let me show you the last one. And the last one here, let me make it bigger so you can see it. Okay, so the last one here, what I'm going to do is I'm going to put little dots the same way I've been doing. I drew this in purple, so I'm going to put my dots in orange here so that you can see them. And I'm just going to do on the corners to make it easier for myself and figure out what's happening. So for this first dot, it goes out to the 2 on the X, and it goes up to the 9. So this is at a 2 and a 9. This one goes out to the 4 and up to the 7. 4, 7. This one goes out to the 6 and up to the 4. 6, 4. You can stop right there because you have a pattern now. You see that the X is increasing while the Y is decreasing. I'm going to go ahead and do the last dot for you. It goes out to the 8 and up to the 2. So our pattern is complete. We now know that X is increasing as Y is decreasing. So going back to the original problem, we know that E has to be the answer. Otherwise, this wouldn't work out. To be able to do this, again, you have to have an understanding of what your XY coordinate plane looks like and what's happening along the plane. And what's happening is that for every little space that you see here, there is an X and a Y coordinate. And you can put a dot anywhere you want to, here, 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 or here. And when you do that, it's going to be going out a certain X and either going up or down a certain Y. So if I'd put a dot right here, the coordinates would be 8, -7. If I had put a dot over here, the coordinates would be -7, -3, because it goes out a certain distance on the X and it either goes up or down on the Y. So you have to understand how the coordinate plane works to be able to answer question number 4. This is probably one of the trickier parts of the test because we are accustomed to seeing these with numbers on them instead of just seeing them done like this. So whenever you sit down to take this test, whether you're taking a paper test or you're taking a computer test, sketch these out for yourself. Do what I just did with my paint program, and you don't have to do separate planes for each one. You don't even have to write in all the numbers. You can sort of approximate things because what you're looking for is a pattern. So if you're doing this on the computer, you can draw this on your scratch paper. If you're doing it on a paper test, you can draw it on your scratch paper because you're not allowed to write on the test itself. But if you'll draw these out, this problem will probably take you about 5 minutes, but it's one that you can get correct after you look through everything. And remember, every correct answer is going to help toward your score. You need to try to get at least 20 correct to be able to pass this test out of the possible 50 whenever you take the real HiSet. So keep that in mind as you're going through. And for number 4, the answer is going to be E. 2 and 4 are the two graphs that work with this format of Y decreasing as X increases.